These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
Reckless speculation. Reckless speculation.
Hello, and happy Reckless Speculation Thursday to all who celebrate. This is Mackie and Judd, and our friend Darren Doogie Wolfson joins us every single week, a couple times. A little bonus scoop early in the week as well from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department and also the Scoop podcast after a Timberwolves win in their opener. We're going to get to a lot of that later in the show. Timberwolves will break the... Declan was at the game just slamming beers. Declan's
slamming
a basketball
beers,
guy now.
Yelling at Josh Giddey. It was a great time.
Get off Josh Giddey's back. He's a good young man.
No, yeah, just let that man pave his own path, Declan, without heckling. But let's start with a little something Judd threw out yesterday. You made a prediction on Write That Down. You've done some digging. We've got our Scoops guy here, Doogie, inside information about Minnesota sports teams. I'm just going to say 3 words, and I would like you guys to tell us your thoughts.
Okay.
Odell Beckham Jr.
All right, Dukes, before I throw it to you, I want to be very clear of something. The digging I did was research, okay? So I don't have this on authority from anyone. Nonetheless, we talked about it. I did an afternoon Judd on it. And then, where you can now find the new Styles Vikings writing from Judd Zolgad at Vikings Wire, I wrote about it.
A walking cheap
Check it out, Vikings Wire. Anyway, I connected dots. So I'm going to throw it to you, but I just want to be clear that I did not talk to any sources who said this is like going to happen.
I've got it. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday to all of you. Heck, if you're watching or listening to this, you celebrate it, right? You embrace it. It's a lifestyle. So it's not, hey, if you're watching or listening to this, you do. So happy Reckless Speculation Thursday. Yes, before I get to Odell, Phil, we all mourn with you. Just publicly, I just want to say that, your dad raised a wonderful young man. So we're all thinking of you, okay? On OBJ, we can go letters, right? Like, he's so well known, it doesn't need to be full name. OBJ. Judd, I get it. Connect all the logical dots you want with the Kevin O'Connell connection, the Phillips connection. It goes up and down, right? It's more than that, right? Justin Jefferson, Odell Beckham Jr. have a rock-solid relationship. Would Odell Beckham Jr. help the Vikings? To me, if he's healthy, undoubtedly, right? Like, there are enough targets to go around. It's not like it's him or KJ Osborne. They can coexist. What I know is, as of right now, there just isn't any steam. There just isn't. And if I had to bet, Odell Beckham Jr. does not land here in Minnesota. Now, the Vikings do have a rock-solid relationship with his agent. His agent, Zeke, doesn't have a whole lot of clients, but he does represent Danielle Hunter. So Rob Brzezinski and company have a good relationship with the agent. But I'm not sure in the end that matters all that much. I just think it makes more sense. Either he ends up back in a Rams uniform, maybe Kansas City. I just don't see it happening here. Now, one comeback will be the Vikings just don't even have any cap space, which is true. Like, at the moment, the Vikings are barely above. Like, if you go to NFLPA.com, if you have access to that, it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars, not millions of dollars of cap space they have at the moment. But you can create cap space. They can still do something with Eric Kendricks' contract. There are ways. Like, if the Vikings really wanted to sign OBJ, if he wanted to be here, I promise there would be a way to make it work. But as I sit here on Thursday at, 10:08 Central in the morning, Thursday, October 20th, I'm just telling you guys, there just isn't any steam on my end that there's actual interest from OBJ in being a Viking.
All right. Well, we have another update here because we have reporters all over the country. We have spies on the ground. We have Purple Daily listeners inside expensive 5-star restaurants in Miami, and so this note came into the show yesterday. I'll leave his name out of it. We don't need to. Apologies if this person would like his name on it and we're blowing the scoop for him. Send us another scoop. We'll put your name on it. But just to be safe here, it says, I went to the game in Miami, and on Friday, my girlfriend and I went to, in Minnesota, we would call it Carboni, like the pizza place. This is like the 5-star restaurant you can find in New York City, Miami, Las Vegas. I believe it's pronounced Carbone. Anyways, went to that expensive restaurant, ran into OBJ at this restaurant. It was my girlfriend's birthday. He sat and talked with us for 10 minutes, got a picture with him, asked where he was signing. And he told me, quote, Buffalo or Kansas City, whoever gives me the bag, end quote. Now, I will say, this is all under the umbrella of reckless speculation here, okay? So,
Reckless speculation.
that sounds about right, though, that he would go to probably one of the 2 best teams. Eagles might be in that mix for best team in the NFL. But the best team that would give him the most money. Now, the Vikings have the second best record in the NFL. Are they able to give him, quote unquote, the bag with the Thielen contract, with the Justin Jefferson contract coming up? I don't know what the bag looks like for him this year. But I do believe this anecdote from an expensive restaurant in Miami.
Well, I mean, I just recklessly speculated Kansas City. Kansas City makes a lot of sense to me. But, yeah, don't undersell the Von Miller influence in Buffalo. So, sure, as you say that, my instant reaction is yes. Buffalo is, yeah, we can debate, but certainly to me the best team in the AFC. But if you want to debate Kansas City or someone else, fine. Maybe not the best team in the NFL, but certainly a team that can make a deep run in January. So, sure. That does make sense. If you look at the Rams with all those injuries on their offensive line, even if there was genuine interest in reuniting with Sean McVay, if you're Odell, if you're chasing a ring, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to go back to Los Angeles.
Agree completely. I think the one thing about the Bills that intrigues me from the standpoint of is that the best place for him, because they are certainly a great team, is this, though. Do you want to sign with a team when you're probably not going to play around until December 1st and then play throughout the rest of the season in Buffalo, where here it's a controlled environment and I think offensively, theoretically, there should be a much better chance in December to make an impact in the passing game with home games. So, but yeah, I actually found a quote from O'Connell during his Super Bowl press conference. He hadn't officially been announced here yet. It was Super Bowl week, and a reporter asked him about OBJ, and O'Connell, and now it seems completely sincere, just raved about him. Said he's just been a great guy. He loves football. He is, and so I just wonder if there's a relationship there that might have been, since my guess is that KOC paid a lot of attention because he was the OC there. If there might have been a relationship there with Beckham that was among the most important and might have even been more important than the relationship with McVay based on the time O'Connell could devote to that side of the football.
Sure. Makes all the sense. I also wonder, would a grass surface be better for him? So Kansas City more so. I believe Buffalo is some sort of turf. I mean,
it is.
Heck, I had a conversation with Andrew Booth Jr. a couple weeks ago. I mean, he's convinced that crappy turf at Tottenham Hotspur, whatever that was, that artificial, that field turf, not the natural grass, had a lot to do with Lewis Seen's compound fracture, right? And so if you're OBJ coming off a serious knee injury, would you consider, playing surface? But it's such a finite amount of time for these guys to maximize their earning potential. Yeah. If Buffalo wants to offer a couple million more dollars than everyone else, then I'm sure who cares about the surface at that point. I also just don't foresee, going back to the Adamic and Sue chatter, right? The Vikings let it be known very early, like July, August. Hey, we'll take Adamic, but at the vet minimum, we're not paying him $8-9 million.
Yeah.
So I wonder if the Vikings would say, okay, yeah, if Odell wants to be here, sure, but we're not going much beyond the minimum.
And if you have any other OBJ stuff, you guys jump in here. But just you bring up Lewis Seen. We're 6 weeks in. They had a weird travel situation with, London and then no bye week and Chicago and then travel over to Miami. And so I'm actually very shocked and pleasantly surprised by how few injury issues, knock on wood, this team has had so far, right? I mean, it's like they've emerged relatively unscathed through the first third of the season so far, knock on wood. Again, I just jinxed it probably.
Well, if you have that sort of power, Phil, that to me is amazing. But you're right. I touched on the Rams, right? Go up and down the list. Look at Miami. The Vikings playing Miami last Sunday.
Chargers,
Perfect time, right? I mean, even Green Bay, others, just there are a bunch of teams dealing with all sorts of injury concerns for the most part. And sure, Lewis Cine would help these guys on special teams. But when you look at their top 25 to 28 to 30 players, yeah, knock on whatever, but they've been as healthy as any team in the entire league.
Mm-hmm. So, Dukes, the trade deadline, which often in this league, it's grown a little bit, but it's ordinarily not like, basketball, baseball, hockey, comes up November 1st. What do we think the Vikings might do? And I've got two positions specifically for you. Tight end, because I don't think the production at tight end has been what they expected across the board. And depth at defensive tackle, which goes back to the Sue conversation, which of course goes back to the summer.
Those would be the two positions. Maybe backup linebacker, maybe backup cornerback. But yeah, the first two positions I would look at would be tight end and interior of the defensive line. So I was told to check on Denver. Even with the new regime, there are still plenty of connections in the Vikings front office to George Payton and company. They have a backup tight end that's been a healthy scratch recently. Heck, remember, there was some interest in Kyle Rudolph going back to late July. He's been a healthy scratch in Tampa. So could that be a possibility? Although Cameron Brate just went down with an injury. So I don't know what the long-term prognosis is on Brate. But Kyle Rudolph hasn't been getting the playing time that he thought he would get in Tampa. Now, I'm not sure Tampa wants to help an NFC rival anyway. But, look at some of the tight ends being scratched across the league. I would keep an eye on those guys. I had a tip to check on the Washington Commanders, that they are looking to do some stuff. So we'll keep an eye on that situation as November 1st gets closer. Anticipating this question, Judd, I will tell you, I texted with an AFC personnel director this morning. Now, not a logical trade fit, not a team that I expected the Vikings to have trade dialogue with, but I said, hey, to this gentleman via text, are you hearing any Vikings trade scuttlebutt? He texted back immediately saying right now, no, nothing.
Interesting. This is probably more of a March situation to address, but I feel like we thought the Vikings wide receivers would be much more effective and explosive in this offense than they've been so far. If you look, so Justin Jefferson is averaging 14 yards per reception. You can see it with your eyes. When he gets the ball, he's explosive in this offense. Adam Thielen is every bit of 32 years old. I saw one of our guys, I think it was Eric Eager, our guy formerly from Pro Football Focus, now going to work for some big hedge fund billionaire to fix the analytics system in the NFL. He's amazing and a friend of the show. That Adam Thielen's yards per route run have just plummeted over the past 4 or 5 years. And I don't know. Maybe it's just KJ Osborne. Maybe he hasn't been given the opportunities. He has the lowest yards per reception of any of the three receivers I just mentioned. So I don't know if it's this trade deadline or if you have to take a long, hard look at your top three receivers going into next year, but I don't know that you can get out from underneath the Adam Thielen contract in 2023. So I guess my general question is, where do you think they're at in terms of their comfort with the wide receivers, and how likely would it be that they could, we talked about Odell Beckham Jr., obviously, could they be in the market for a receiver before the trade deadline?
Well, I mean, they were not in on Robbie Anderson, who got traded this week to Arizona. I can tell you that's a guy who can stretch the field, right? So if they were, at least you make the phone call to Carolina, do you not? Before they struck that deal with Arizona. I presume they've discussed OBJ internally. How would they not, right? I'm sure it's come up internally. Maybe there's even been a phone call to the agent. I have not heard that, but I'm not ruling out that possibility. I'm just saying in the end, I don't see OBJ landing here. But Phil, I think your concern is legit. I still think Jalen Naylor has a chance, maybe not this year. So maybe it's a March into next year, OTAs, minicamp, training camp, 2023. But don't sleep on the 6th-round pick, Jalen Naylor from Michigan State. He can stretch the field. He really did it at a high level in the Big Ten. I get it. Much different animal here in the National Football League. But he is a guy that has a chance. But even that being said, yeah, it's something they need to look at. And it's not like Kirk doesn't have time, right? I mean, the offensive line is giving Kirk plenty of time. So it's not like he doesn't have time to drop back 7 steps and fling it downfield. So the concern more would be outside of JJ, who can really stretch the field.
Right.
I'd like to think there's a little bit more there with KJ Osborne, though.
I agree.
And do they use Jalen Reagor a little bit more as the year moves forward? I mean, he's been getting a few offensive snaps per game. Is there a little bit more there with Reagor, his ability to stretch the field? We know how fast he is.
I think there is an interesting story there, though, guys, on Osborne. Just the fact that he hasn't. I mean, I really thought that he would be used more. And what's weird about it is it's not like the tight ends are taking up all those catches. Like I thought, Irv Smith has been, to me, to put it kindly, inconsistent. He's caught some passes, but he's also dropped some huge ones, and he hasn't been the consistent presence that I expected him to be in the passing game. So the Osborne thing that surprises me is, okay, if that's going to be the case, and at least for now, the tight ends aren't going to contribute as much as expected, Dukes, that a guy like Osborne would benefit from that. And the one thing that we don't know and that I can't tell yet is this. Is this a personnel issue where KJ's not where O'Connell expected and where Thielen has slowed down? Or is this a schematic issue as well where this week is going to provide an opportunity for KOC to sit down and say, I have to adjust things as I'm calling them? Like that's the potential here where it could be a little bit of both of those things. Because I don't think Osborne's done something wrong. Like I don't remember any huge drops, right? And I don't remember, like, he had a good camp. So I am flat out surprised that he has not benefited from the fact that tight ends aren't doing more.
My instant thought is it's a combination, right? I mean, you just alluded to it, Judd, that it could be both. I think it would be both. Like, I don't think KJ Osborne is a bad player. No. I think there's enough there. So there's more there for Kevin O'Connell to unearth. But it goes back to, like, I think a pass catcher, whether it's at the tight end position or maybe it's at the receiver position, but I may put that number one on the trade request list. As Kwesi is working the phones here with 11 days to go, somebody to help the passing game in terms of catching the ball. I'd put that number one on a list above interior defensive lineman.
Yeah. Before we continue on here with additional scoops on this Reckless Speculation Thursday, a shout out to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company, helping to power us here on Mackey and Judd, Purple Daily, SKOR North as a whole, and for over 100 years helping to power businesses through risk management tools and resources, just like having a great offensive line for your business. Find out which industries they work best with at federatedinsurance.com, where it's always our business to protect yours. All right, feel free to wrap up any other Vikings things, but the Timberwolves last night, and we'll dive more into this. Declan was in the arena, and Judd, you were in the arena last night, so we'll do our own little breakdown later. But Rudy Gobert, man, they don't win that game without the dominating performance and the calming presence of Rudy Gobert in an otherwise kind of sloppy second half.
15 shot attempts. Did he have 15 shot attempts in a game all of last year?
Let me check that. That's a good question.
Well,
he averaged like 8. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the answer is no. That he never had one game in Utah last year where he attempted 15 shots. You're right. He was the best player on the floor. I think Jaden McDaniels was the second best player.
Dude, yeah.
It's a reminder, like the Wolves were pretty public about how badly Utah wanted Jaden McDaniels, but they would not include him in the Gobert trade. Think about it. This time next year, what sort of extension is Jaden McDaniels looking at? He has all sorts of leverage. Now, he could just play it out, go to restricted free agency. So the Wolves still control him for multiple more years. But, like, they need to pay that guy, right? And we touched on it a few weeks ago. There's more there. You can use him some different ways. Like, they didn't run any plays for Jaden last night, and he still impacted the game at a pretty high level. I'd like to see Finch run some plays for Jaden McDaniels. But fortunate that you played OKC, although I think OKC with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is pretty darn feisty. They are pesky. That's not an automatic win when SGA is playing. But, you know, the Wolves are fortunate that OKC can't shoot. You know, they're horrendously bad at three-point shooting. Like, if they had made a few more threes, you know, the Wolves may have lost that game. But opening nights can be weird. You know, I watched a good amount of my buddy Ryan Saunders' his Denver Nuggets last night. Like, Utah controlled most of that game. Denver had a mini run or two in it. But Utah ends up winning by 18 or 20 points.
Utah's actually Utah's feistier than people think.
Well, yeah. And I think, like, when people were looking at this early portion of the Wolves schedule saying, okay, OKC, Utah, San Antonio, some people were saying OKC is the feistiest of the bunch. To me, it's Utah.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, Rudy
Plus,
Gay, they've got some veterans on that
you've
team.
got
that
the
can
revenge
play.
factor, too, with Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley. Even, I'll tell you who looked good last night.
Walker Kessler.
Especially defending
Walker
Nikola
Kessler.
Jokic. Walker Kessler.
Dude,
I'm not
was really
suggesting he's going to be a 35-minute-a-guy type starter, but Walker Kessler can play.
Double-double,
Do not
5 for 5 from the
undersell
field.
that acquisition by Utah.
And a great cowboy, too.
I feel bad for him.
He gets on his
Grandpa
horse
played
and
for the
goes home.
Gophers.
I'm
I
out
sat
of here.
down with him at his introductory news conference. He was so psyched to play for the Wolves, and the trade happens a few days later. But Walker Kessler can play. But like I was watching New Orleans, Brooklyn last night. I think Brooklyn in the end will be pretty good. But like last night, New Orleans jumped on them early, never gave up the lead, pretty much led by 20 the entire game. So opening nights can be goofy. But like I did not foresee, of all the potential scenarios, I did not foresee the Thunder going on a 27-5 run at any point. Like in that second half, they went on a 27-5 run. I would not have bet on that scenario.
97,
playing
dude.
itself
He gave him
out.
a spark. I can't pronounce his name, but he gave him
He's
a
on
spark.
a two-way. I can't pronounce his name either, but he's on a two-way, right? So he took advantage of an opportunity, right? He's trying to get a standard contract. That's a way that you pop. Yeah.
He was a
and
mucker.
Giddey can play. I love Josh Giddey. So they've got some guys. In fact, if Chet Holmgren doesn't suffer the season-ending foot injury, I mean, to me, OKC would have been top 5 league pass viewing, at least for me. Bias with Chet, the local guy, but Chet, Giddey, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like that would have been a really fun threesome to follow. But hey, Cat and Ant both played like garbage. Like, how often are you going to win when those two guys play way below average? It's pretty clear Cat is still getting his legs underneath him. He's not there. He actually played more minutes than I ever would have thought. Like, I was led to believe he was not going to play that much. So I guess maybe just how competitive the game was, finding a way to win, he was able to gut through. But he is not 100%. Ant has to do a better job of finishing at the rim. I thought he did a better job in the preseason, but he missed some shots that he has to make.
And what's surprising about that is the man is now built beyond. I mean, he is just a brick wall
Dude,
now.
he's listed now at 239.
But I mean, how can you not then do what Dukes is talking about? Like, you're going to get to the rim, and people are just going to move because of your body.
Well,
so that
part
was
of it is
surprising.
he either needs to be better at just converting those layups in traffic, like you're gonna ping pong off bodies. You need to find a way to finish, or find a way to make sure they call the foul. I think a lot of Timberwolves fans, somewhat rightfully so, complain that he doesn't get enough foul calls when he's driving to the lane. But some of that's like, go back and look at the greats at drawing fouls, right? I mean, Dwayne Wade's the obvious comparison. There is an art to getting the foul call. And it's not just that you're a superstar. There's an art to the way that you absorb the contact. And think about how many times Dwayne Wade drives to the rim, slightly over-exaggerates contact, right? That's the level that he needs to get to, so that it's a no-brainer that he at least gets 10 free throws in a night when he's getting to the rim that often. You can't just have no foul call and then miss 5 layups. Like, there's got to be some sort of payoff there.
Well, and I think there can just be some more fluidity to his offensive game. Like, you watched Shai Gilgeous last night. That's smoothness right there, right? He seemingly is always in control. I think Ant has the talent, the ability to get to that sort of level. But I wonder about some of these tough matchups, maybe not in the next, few days, but, over the course of the season. Ant is going to be guarding a lot of high-level players. How does that impact how much he's going to be, exerting energy on the defensive end? How will that impact the offensive end? But that was the part of him putting on some weight, some muscle, becoming, in better shape, right? Working on his diet, knowing that the defensive challenge was going to ramp up this year. And so I'll be curious to see how things play out. But I still would bet on him. Like, I'm not overreacting to one game. I still think, I think he's got all defensive team potential, maybe not this year, but in the next few years.
Right.
And I think, whether it's this year or next year, I think he's going to be an all-star.
On Cat, how much time do you guys think it's going to take there too? Because one, in person, he is alarmingly thin. Like, when I saw him courtside basically last night, I've seen the pictures, but I guess in person it's more so. but also he seems like a guy who forget the health scare, just flat out, this is going to take some time, because Gobert's role in Gobert's world probably hasn't changed a ton. Like he's going to do what he does well. Cat's the guy who's being asked to make way there. And that looks like it's just flat out going to be a work in progress.
Well, yeah. I'll just tell you what Glenn Taylor told me. And Glenn talks to all the people he needs to talk to, right? Tim Connolly, who gets it from the sports science
Glenn
people.
Becky last night.
Glenn isn't going to lie on this one. So I had Glenn on the most recent Scoop podcast, episode 401, that posted last weekend. Glenn told me a couple weeks. Now, I wouldn't be shocked if it's more like 3 to 4 weeks, but Glenn says at least a couple weeks. So figure at least, 14 to 17 to 20 days. But even so, like, Cat had an offensive foul toward the end of last night's game, right? Where he kicked out his leg again. Like, Cat, uncle, mercy on that. Yeah. Right? It's been pounded into your head by Finch, by others with the Wolves. You can't do that. Yet he still continues to do it. Yeah. So, that's got nothing to do with his legs not being underneath him, fatigue, all that, not being in great shape. Like, that was just a moronic play that he has to stop doing.
Yeah. He has the emotional intelligence of a mop, and so you're just going to have to work around it. He's a wildly talented player, but you have to work around it. And thankfully, like you saw many times last night, Rudy Gobert is sitting there on the bench kind of dictating, hey, here's what we're going to do defensively. It's just kind of nice to have Austin Rivers. The broadcast last night, Michael Grady and Jim Peterson pointed out at one of the practices that Jim Pete was allowed into that Austin Rivers brought the team together and said, trust your role, trust the coaches. So you've got some presence, it feels like, in this locker room and on that bench where hopefully you can just, last night's a great example. They worked around some petulance by Karl Anthony Towns, couldn't make a shot. Anthony Edwards couldn't make a shot. And they still had like a 16-point lead, and it got a little dicey there, but they still win the game by 8 points. So hopefully you have enough where you can work around some of this stuff.
I will tell you, when Gobert went down holding his knee, I'm like, uh-oh. Because there's been some knee concerns there. So thankfully, Rudy is just fine. But you're right. Now, I think on Austin, like, I love the idea of him being on the team. I would really love the idea of tracking him down for a regular podcast, or at least – from time to time. Like, he's got the gift of gab.
Yeah.
He is a very enjoyable listen, but like, will his message resonate if he's not getting minutes?
Yeah. 45.
I do pause on that.
I think
he can eventually help him. Like, I think he can play. It's not like he needs to be the 11th or 12th man. I think there will be opportunities for him to help on the court. I just wonder immediately how much his message resonates when he's not playing.
Yeah, I think for some reason the NBA is a little different in that regard, I think, in that, Udonis Haslem with the Heat, right? There's a few guys that come to mind that they don't play a lot over the years, but you can still have, hell, KG as a Timberwolf barely played the second time around and still had a wild, impact. So
although KG, right? The resume spoke for itself. Everybody knew.
Yeah, both
right?
top
A lot
10
of those
picks.
guys grew up watching KG. It's not like these guys have grown up.
Yeah, it's like Moss.
Austin Rivers.
When Moss came back, guys still. Percy loved him despite the fact he was basically washed up.
Yeah. All right, give us some rapid fire scoops here. I know you guys probably talked about this, but I guess I'm a little skeptical when the Gophers land one of the top big men recruits in the country. So why should we believe this? What am I missing? What's the catch? Why do the Gophers just have this insanely talented 7-foot guy now on their team?
Well, we didn't, because I went up north for a few days. So I can't explain it, but my boys have the entire week off. So happy MEA weekend.
Yeah, we didn't talk on Tuesday.
Celebrate.
Just a month off school.
The school district we are in, we have the entire week off. So we took the boys up to Gooseberry Falls, up to
some Gooseberry
Split Rock Lighthouse. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the North Shore. So we did not converse on Tuesday. I knew what was going on. I can tell you that Dennis Evans has a very tight relationship with Jaden Hardy, who's a guard right now on the Gophers. But sure, like, you're wondering, okay, why were the Gophers and TCU of all schools in it at the end? What happened to Kansas? For a while, we heard Kansas wanted Evans. Well, Kansas seemingly backed off enough, or Kansas has enough recruiting targets. This kid played for USA Basketball, so I'm still trying to figure out why some other schools weren't in the mix. Now, some were, and he just said not interested. So credit to Ben Johnson, first and foremost, Marcus Jenkins, others with the Gophers for really doing a phenomenal sell job, because it sounds like in the end, TCU did offer some pretty interesting NIL opportunities where he could have made really good money. He's not making that sort of money here. Now, there will be some opportunities to make some money here, but he's not making the money here that he could have made in Fort Worth. So the Gophers beat that appeal. But I'm telling you, this Hardy influence, this Gophers guard Hardy, who 99.9% of people don't know about, he's a freshman. He has a very good relationship with Dennis Evans. So don't undersell that angle. But yeah, I mean, whether it's Royce White or if you want to go back to Chris Humphreys, I mean, it's either been 15, 16 years or 19, 20 years since the Gophers landed a recruit of this caliber. We all thought when Ben Johnson took over for Richard Pitino, the recruiting would go up. Well, this would be, example 1A, right? Like Richard Pitino, we love Richard, right? We'll have a beer with him any day, but Richard Pitino was not landing Dennis Evans. So kudos to Ben Johnson for landing this kid, who I think has a chance. I don't know a whole lot about his game. He's incredibly skinny. Some people that saw him here for homecoming when he was here for his official visit, that Purdue game, pointed out just, how skinny he is. But hey, like 7 foot is 7 foot, maybe even a legit 7'1" with incredibly long arms. But they're going to have to develop him. He's got to put on some weight. But the thought is this kid has a chance to be an NBA first-round pick. So he'll be on the biggest stage possible, or one of, in the Big Ten, right? If you want to debate ACC or SEC, fine. But one of the biggest stages in the country. Is going to be on national TV every single game. So he'll have a chance starting next year to put on a show. And if he wants to be one and done, maybe be a high pick in the 2024 draft.
Yeah, good stuff. Love it.
Reckless speculation.
Dude, thank you, man. Great stuff. Great insights.
No plans initially for the Wolves on that opening two-way contract with Eric Paschal. His Achilles is all messed up. It's a situation where he's not even in great shape. So maybe A.J. Lawson eventually. I was told P.J. Dozier no. P.J. Dozier not interested if the Wolves presented a two-way opportunity to Dozier. He's not interested, but the Wolves are still planning as if P.J. Dozier will be in Iowa. So I wouldn't sleep on P.J. Dozier one day helping the Wolves, like maybe January, February, March, but not immediately. But right now I was told no immediate plans for the Wolves to fill that opening two-way roster spot.
Okay. Are the Twins loading up a $250 million bag of cash for Carlos Correa?
The dialogue is ongoing with his representation. One other Twins note, Austin Martin took a 95-mile-per-hour fastball in the ribs the other day in the Arizona Fall League.
That's really going to affect his power.
He's actually been okay. I'm telling you, the Twins, now I get it, the Twins are trying to unearth more power, so they've tweaked his swing. Maybe just come to the conclusion, the power's not there. Let him be an on-base guy, steal some bases, play decent defense. I still think he's a big leaguer, but if they're looking for power, I just don't think it's going to happen. Now their comeback is he may ultimately be a corner outfielder, not an infielder. So if he's playing corner outfield, there has to be some pop. So I get why the Twins are doing what they're doing, but maybe it's time after a full year to come to the conclusion the power's not going to be there. Let him go back to his Vanderbilt swing, his Blue Jay system swing, where he can get on base at a high clip.
I trust that the Twins know what they're doing. Okay, I think let's back off on the criticism here a little bit. Okay, just pump the brakes there, Dukes.
And don't forget, New Jersey's coming out in November. Very exciting opportunity to get your Twins gear before the season, baseball fans.
New Jersey's new scoreboard.
New scoreboard. It's going to it's going to be so big that you won't have to worry about what's going on the field because you can just watch the scoreboard.
What a time to unveil new branding. Hey, everybody. I might wait just a little bit longer. All right, Dukes. We'll see you next week,
Bye,
man.
Darren.
Have a good
Talk to you
Thursday.
Tuesday.
Darren Doogie Wolfson from 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department and the Scoop Podcast. Let's press on